Welcome, everybody. I'm Lee Wright. As John mentioned, I'm a member of the Brotherhood of St Andrew, and my home church is Christ Church in Pensacola, Florida, which I've mentioned already to some of you. Pensacola is on the extreme western end of the Florida Panhandle, right near Mobile, Alabama. Some refer to us as Lower Alabama here. But at any rate, I'm really happy to have this group together today and happy to speak to you. The Brotherhood of St Andrew, as a little bit of background, was founded in 1883. So it's an old organization. It has a worldwide ministry for men and youth in the Episcopal and Anglican communion. The Brotherhood's purpose is to spread Christ's kingdom through the disciplines of prayer, study, and service. This is done with a special focus on 7 ministries: prisons, scouting, veterans, discipleship, racial reconciliation, recovery, and social justice. I'm grateful for this opportunity to share something that is particularly important to me: recovery from addiction. I'm not an addiction recovery professional. In fact, I've had 2 careers. The first 23 years as a U.S. Navy officer, and second 21 years as a high school teacher. But along the way, I experienced recovery. And that's what I want to share with you today. Let's begin with some data from the National Center of Drug Abuse Statistics. The population of the U.S. today is approximately 300 million people. Of that population, 21 million people are addicted to drugs or alcohol. That equates to the combined population of Georgia, Alabama, and Louisiana. Looking at it another way, that is 1 in every 15 Americans is addicted to drugs and or alcohol. Or if you consider the fact that the addict has 3 or 4 family members or friends that are affected by the addict's behavior, then every 1 in 3 Americans is affected by addiction. And this is just 2 of the possible addictions that I'm talking about here: alcohol and drugs. So look to your right, look to your left. 1 in every 3 Americans are affected by drugs or alcohol. That's 1/3 of the population. My rector at Christ Church in Pensacola, Florida, Father Michael Hoffman, always starts his Sunday message with a personal story. Here's my personal story. In my hometown of Topeka, Kansas, there is a hill called Quinton Heights. By Kansas standards, it is a tall and wide hill, clear of trees and brush, with a large open area at the bottom. It was and is a perfect spot for sledding in the wintertime. It was always a treat to load up our family station wagon with friends and sleds and head to Quinton Heights. Near the open area at the bottom of that hill, there was a small white building that stood by itself. Its purpose was a mystery to me until my curiosity prompted me to ask my mother about it. She said that's where alcoholics go. She may have explained more, but all I heard was it's where alcoholics go. And images of the drunk and destitute I had seen in movies and on television came to mind. So it was a place to be avoided, as there was a stigma attached to all who went there. Fast forward a few years, as I began to see and understand the world from a different perspective, I understood that that small white building was a meeting place for Alcoholics Anonymous. And in my thinking, it was still a place for those who drank too much and had no place else to go. There still was a stigma attached to all those that went there. Moving on to having a family of my own, the impact of alcoholism and addiction became a real and personal issue. My perception of the my perception of the alcoholic or addict changed. This group of unfortunates were not just the poor and downtrodden, but doctors, nurses, lawyers, business people, teachers, clergy, construction workers, waiters, even family. Also, I learned that there were places like that little white building all over the world where alcoholics and addicts could go every day throughout the day to seek recovery. Let's see. There we go. What is addiction? The American Society of Addiction Medicine defines addiction as a treatable chronic medical disease involving complex interactions among brain circuits, genetics, the environment, and an individual's life experiences. People with addiction use substances like alcohol and drugs or engage in behaviors such as gambling, overeating, sex that become compulsive and often continue despite harmful consequences. The initial decision that leads to addiction is voluntary for most people, but behavior repetition can lead to brain changes that challenge an addicted person's self-control. It is most important to understand that addiction is an incurable disease. It is equally important to understand that this disease not only affects the addict, but family and friends as well. Again, think about it. 100 million Americans, 1 in every 3 are affected by alcoholism or addiction. So there are more sick people than just the addict when addiction occurs. A particular concern is codependency. This can occur when the family or friends of the addict, being caring and helpful, perpetuate or enable the addict's destructive behavior. Some have called addiction cunning and baffling. Why? Because of the following dilemma. To survive addiction, the addict must stop the addictive behavior, and family and friends must stop trying to fix the addict's behavior. Herein lies the crux of this dilemma. The addict cannot control the addiction, and family and friends cannot control the addict's behavior. The result is misery and suffering for everyone as they move from one crisis to another. Loss of jobs, legal problems, and broken families, divorce, poor health, even death are byproducts that come not only from the addict, but family and friends as well. But there is hope. There is recovery. What is recovery? For the addict, the first part of recovery is stopping the addictive behavior or getting sober or clean. Next comes the healing process of becoming well spiritually, mentally, and physically while sober or clean. It is an active and ongoing practice of working toward personal betterment, not just stopping the addictive behavior. For family and friends, recovery begins when they stop trying to control the addict's behavior. Next, the active and ongoing healing process begins, which involves focusing on themselves instead of the addict. Recovery for the addict, family, and friends can only start when they have been humbled by the disease. This is when they can go no further because they can do no more. They have reached their bottom. In other words, they are desperate. At this point, there are 3 choices for the addict and 3 choices for the family. For the addict, choice 1, to continue the addiction and suffer the consequences, ultimately imprisonment or death. Choice 2, to stop the addictive behavior without help, sometimes referred to as white knuckling. This does not end well because this does not involve the healing process of recovery. And choice 3, surrender and ask for help. For family and friends, choice 1, to continue to try to control the addictive behavior by providing money and cleaning up messes, which leads to chaos and insanity, even death. Choice 2, build a wall so there is no more contact with the addict, thus ending the relationship. And choice 3, surrender and ask for help. Hopefully you see choice 3 as the best for everyone. Surrender and ask for help. This path offers hope and a path to recovery. So what does surrender mean? Surrender means admitting powerlessness over the addiction and that addiction makes life unmanageable. Why ask for help? Every attempt possible has been made to fix an unfixable problem. The result is always the same: frustration and failure. So where do you ask for help? First, you can contact someone in recovery, and you can find that someone by connecting through your church, Alcoholics Anonymous, Al-Anon, Narcotics Anonymous, Sex Addicts Anonymous, Gamblers Anonymous, or other specific recovery group. Secondly, you can contact professional help, such as a residential addiction recovery center or a certified addiction counselor. What are the areas that will be addressed during recovery? There are 3 areas in every person's life that must be maintained for well-being: spiritual, mental, and physical. Spiritual well-being involves a conflict between God and self. Health in this case involves denying self-will and seeking God's will for daily living. Mental well-being involves living a sane life by accepting things that cannot be changed and changing things that can be changed. To do otherwise results in chaos and insanity. Physical well-being involves taking time to take care of yourself. Seeing the doctor and dentist, personal grooming, regular exercise, a healthy diet, and adequate sleep are especially important. It is obvious that active addiction can make the maintenance of these areas of well-being impossible for the addict, family, or friends. Accepting help from others in recovery as they share their experience, strength, and hope in these areas is a must. In summary, here are the points I hope you will take with you today. First, addiction is an incurable disease. Second, addiction is not just about alcohol and drugs. There are many other addictions. 3, addiction affects not only the addict, but family and friends as well. 4, recovery for the addict is not just getting sober and clean. It is a lifelong program of personal discovery and healing. 5, recovery for family and friends is similar, but it begins by ending attempts to control the addict's behavior. 6, the road to recovery begins with surrender and asking for help. And 7, the 3 areas addressed during recovery are spiritual, mental, and physical well-being. There is no pill or surgery to cure the disease of addiction or its effects. It requires a lifelong commitment to recovery one day at a time. Recovery begins with one humble step: surrender. Let's shift focus here to what the Brotherhood of St Andrew's Recovery Committee, or ministry, is doing. The recovery ministry of the Brotherhood is a small group of men that meets monthly via Zoom. Our mission is to be a conduit of recovery information. We have recently updated the Brotherhood website, in particular the recovery page that has current resource information. We are posting information about recurring recovery meetings in the monthly Brotherhood newsletter and also on the Brotherhood website. We also carry the message of recovery with presentations like this at conventions, webinars, Brotherhood meetings, or wherever we happen to be invited. Our current project is to prepare a news article and devotions to be used by Brotherhood chapters honoring Father Sam Shoemaker, whose ministry had a profound effect on Bill Wilson, the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous. Father Shoemaker is venerated by the Anglican Communion on January 31st. If you want help to help share the recovery message, a source of information and material is found at these websites. The first website you see there, the episcopalrecovery.org, has all sorts of information that's available. Literature, meeting schedules, just a number of things, an excellent resource. The other is the Brotherhood website, brothersandrew.net. And if you go to the recovery page there and look at the resources, every addiction is mentioned, and they all have a website where somebody could connect with that website and find a local meeting. So it's an excellent resource for referring people to. And finally, you can always contact me if you have questions or information, and it's through the brothersandrew.net there, as you see on the screen. There is hope for recovery with God's help, as expressed in this prayer from the Book of Common Prayer. Please listen as I pray. O blessed Lord, you ministered to all who came to you. Look with compassion upon all through addiction have lost their health and freedom. Restore to them the assurance of your unfailing mercy. Remove from them the fears that beset them. Strengthen them in the work of their recovery. And to those who care for them, give patient understanding and persevering love. Amen. And I'll pause here, and if any of you have any questions or comments, we can do that now. And if you just go to the bottom of your screen where it has reactions, and raise your hand. We'll answer the questions that way so we don't talk over each other. Okay. Well, let me start it off then. If there are no questions, I have a question for you, and maybe one of you would like to consider it and answer it. What is your diocese or church doing to make recovery from addiction an open and acceptable topic for discussion and outreach? Anybody got a comment on that? Go ahead, Elaine.
Okay, we just recently did a recovery workshop at our worship service at the St. Mark's Cathedral in Minneapolis. And it was well attended, and it was powerful for many of us who did go to that workshop. And now we're trying to get that to move into the individual parishes for the recovery workshop and worship service.
What did you do that during the week or on a Saturday or
Sunday night?
Sunday night. Okay.
St. Mark's Cathedral, Minneapolis, under Bishop Lola.
Okay. And I assume it was a diocese-wide event?
Invitation, but it was not, very easy for people to get all the way down northern to Minneapolis.
Interesting.
And then there is a hand up from Conrad Jones, if you've noticed that. His hand has been up for a while.
Thank you. Conrad, go ahead.
Thank you, Lee. Appreciate it. Wasn't sure you were just ignoring me. That was okay. I have the occasion to visit with a lot of diocesan conventions. And one thing I have noticed is an increase when we're getting back to in-person diocesan conventions, that a part of the program agenda for the weekend or 2 days or whatever it ends up being is having a 12-step Eucharist program as part of a morning service. So I think that's tremendous. And so many parishes do, if not so much sponsoring, they are opening their doors to many AA chapters and NA chapters. Recovery is in your ministry, Lee, is very close to my heart. I have 2 sons who are addicts, and both, God bless, have been in recovery, full recovery, for 5 years now. So I'm blessed every day, but it doesn't mean that I don't spend every day worrying. But what helped my wife and I tremendously was attending Naranon, which is for families or loved ones of addicts. And that was a tremendous support group to help us, as you were speaking of, the family recovering, not just the addict. But I heard something several weeks ago. Lost a nephew to addiction just about 4 months ago. And as we were gathered for a memorial service, I was talking to my sister, his mother, and she said, addiction is giving up everything for something, but recovery is giving up something for everything. And that resonated with me so much. I really appreciate that ECW that y'all have asked our brother here to present to y'all today. It means so much. Our organizations are, I guess you'd call them brother and sister organizations, along with the Daughters of the King. We love partnering with ECW and DOK on many of our projects. We're about 5,000 strong in the Brotherhood in the United States, and always seeking opportunities. And many parishes y'all will find that are suffering. Men are becoming the vast minority in the Episcopal Church these days. And I have been personally witnessed to chapters that I've started or been a part of starting that have seen, when you start to get interest in things like a brotherhood chapter or so in the church, it begins to bring those men back into the church. So we're eager to help and partner with y'all any way we can. But thank you all for having us here, part of it today. I wasn't invited. I signed up to get on the webinar, but I'd like to extend also that same invitation for our, we have a monthly webinar on a host of subjects, not just brotherhood stuff. We've got a very wonderful Episcopal minister who is a published author that's speaking at our next webinar. It's the first Wednesday every month. We've talked about things like Alzheimer's and how to pray and all kinds of things. So please know that y'all are always welcome to be a part of anything that we're doing in the Brotherhood. You can reach out to Lee, reach out to me. I'm conrad.jones@brothersandrew.net. So thank you all for today, and thank you, Lee, for the great program.
Thank you, Conrad. Father Crean, you have your hand up.
Now I'm unmuted. Yeah, I wanted to say that in terms of, I think it's great having a diocesan sponsorship and so on, as you were mentioning at one of the cathedrals there. I'm too new to the San Diego diocese. I'm actually incarnated in Los Angeles still, but I'm licensed here in San Diego. But I'm not aware whether there is any diocesan-wide stuff going on for recovery. I'm going to a clergy conference in a couple of weeks, and I'll check into that and see what I can find out. But as we were talking earlier before the program began, here in the California desert, near Palm Springs, for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, in Palm Desert, we have a parish, a very large parish by the name of St. Margaret's in the desert. And they do have a recovery Eucharist, and that's currently being celebrated in I think it's the afternoon, later afternoon of the first Sunday of the month. And they borrowed their liturgy, adapted it somewhat from that which is done originally at All Saints Pasadena, which we'd mentioned before. And that was kind of still a leader in that whole area. And when I was resident in the Diocese of Los Angeles, I was helping out on the staff there, and so I'm intimately involved in that. The nice thing about the Recovery Eucharist, it brings in all different recovery program people, and so that's beautiful. I mean, and the way we did it was to have a very informal Eucharist, and we did instead of using wine, we used grape juice or apple juice, which is, which worked out. And for the readings, they would always use the gospel of either the previous or the next Sunday. And then they'd read from the big book or some of the other recovery literature and what have you. And it was marvelous. Then instead of having a sermon, we simply had like an AA meeting, and it was marvelous. It really worked very well. And I think the neat part of Recovery Eucharist is it brings people from all aspects, because recovery is recovery, I mean, whether it's substance abuse or whether it's a process addiction, what have you. So I wanted to share that in terms of the Recovery Eucharist. And that, I mean, after all, the Eucharist is our strong suit. The BCP says it's the central act of Christian worship. And so doing that, opening that up to the wider community, we didn't ask for a baptismal certificate when people showed up at the Recovery Eucharist. I mean, everyone received. So we have a lot to offer, I think, in that regard. And I just want to share that little bit with y'all.
Thank you. I just got let's see, there's some questions coming through chat here too. Let's see, one is, my biggest concern is assisting females with addiction issues. It would be helpful for material just focused about this. It seems especially hard for families to stop enabling. Again, I refer you to that website. If you just go, if you can have access to all these, the kind of the key source website here is the Brotherhood website, brothersandrew.net. If you go there and go to the recovery page and go to resources, It's got all sorts of websites that you can connect with and get information, and that will also connect you with that recovery ministry of the Episcopal Church, which has all sorts of resources regarding addiction, families included. So that would be really good. For specific issues with female addiction, again, it might be good to try to contact a local, if it's Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous, one of those groups, and get specific help and get, somebody that's in recovery, a female in recovery, to talk to that person. Okay, there's another question here. Can you speak on some of the techniques used to help get addicts in the door and becoming receptive to help? I'd be interested in other opinions. My opinion is you can't do anything to get an addict in the door. They've got to decide they want to come in the door themselves. And that's when they are humbled by the disease. They've hit their bottom. And we can certainly, as Conrad Jones mentioned, churches can sponsor AA meetings, Al-Anon meetings, or any of the meetings that are available, and make that available. But as far as getting people in the door, they have to come on their own. And anybody else want to make a comment on that? Go ahead, Elaine.
Well, I do know that something called an intervention can be called in a family, and that pushes the level a little bit higher, so that maybe the person can see there's a united group, not just one person nagging on them, but a united group makes a difference. We're in Minnesota, and of course that means we've got the access to Hazelden, which is a national organization. And again, bigger organizations like that may have more specific things to say.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. Yes, Evelyn.
Hi, I'm Evelyn, and I am a recovering alcoholic and addict. And I want you to know that in the Diocese of San Joaquin, we have always been open to having AA meetings or NA meetings or Al-Anon. And it seems like some of that's kind of fallen off because of all the issues we went through. But there's still there's still parishes, I know, in our diocese. There is no concerted, there's no concentration organization or anything like that. It's just the open door. And I got the intergroup council for the Greater Fresno Area Intergroup Association. They have their meeting. Well, we're still Zooming, but they have their meeting when we're live. They have their meeting at the cathedral. And that's nice because you pull in people from all over. And, it's really funny because as people find out, they're coming up to me and going, "Hey, I'm an alcoholic. Can we get a meeting started here?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's talk about that." And so we're working, because I'm going to put it out there. I mean, I didn't get sober till I was 55. Oh my God, I waited forever. But I'm going to put it out there that I am available I've put it out there to the people in our congregation or the diocese, anybody who wants to talk about it. So I think that people coming forward and saying, and if you're, the parent or the, sibling of a abuser, put your name out there, because you'll get those little quiet people that come up to you after services during coffee hour and say, "Hey, can I talk to you a minute?" And so I think that's an important thing, is because if we don't open our mouths and put our foot out there, nobody's going to get going on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. I don't see any other questions on the chat.
I was going to just make
go-
a comment. If
Go
I might.
ahead.
The thing about getting the alcoholic or the addicted person in the door, quote unquote, I think is dispelled in the literature. Somewhere in the big book, it says we do things by attraction rather than by promotion. And so we can't sort of promote somebody into that. It's an attraction thing, which for those of us who want to promote stuff, it's a difficult thing. But you really, I think, as you said, Lee, you can't manufacture it. You can't lead it. From the outside, it's got to be an interior thing. And there are people who will help you once you want to get in the door. And, I think all of us have that experience, when we felt or realized that we had an addiction problem, that there was, and admitted that, step one, there are people, and there was a marvelous priest who helped me get my foot in the door in my first meeting. And he was there with me, and I'll never forget him, God rest him. And so that's kind of the way it works. But that principle always comes back to me, promotion versus attraction type of thing.
Yeah, thank you for that. I had a thought too on the, Elaine mentioned the intervention, and I think from what I've seen, that the interventions that have been really successful is where not only the person who's the object of the intervention, but everybody else involved in that also seeks recovery. So it's if it's just a group of people teamed up against one person, that's not going to work. But if all that group of people agree that they need recovery as well, there's a good chance of recovery in that type of intervention. So, any other questions or comments? It's been really great to talk with you all today, and I thank you for some good ideas here. I'm certainly going to share it with our recovery ministry committee. Some things that we can share with our brotherhood chapters across the country, and please use our resources. There's as I mentioned, that one good resource, the Episcopal Recovery Ministry of the Episcopal Church, they have a regular meeting too, I think every Wednesday night online, and it's a wonderful meeting. It's an all addictions meeting, and just really a good meeting. And there's a lot of resources out there to take advantage. And I think the big thing that one of the underlying things that our recovery ministry is trying to do is to not only be a conduit of information, but to try to get people talking about this a little bit more. The statistics show that it's a gigantic problem. More people died from overdose in the last 3 years than they did from COVID. So, COVID was headlines, overdose, not so much, but it's a problem, and it's not going away. And the more we talk about it, the better off we are, I think. So thank you all for attending. It's been my pleasure. And I wish you all God's peace one day at a time.
Thank you for your leadership, Lee.
Thank you, Father Green.
Thank you so much for having this discussion today. I appreciate all the information.
Thank you, Evelyn.
Thank you.
Goodbye.